7 spine-chilling tales of the cursed, revealed secrets of haunted places and sinister occurrences in the decaying heart of Willow Creek, where pretty houses grew shadows that clung like ghosts to the cracked sidewalks. Lila found little comfort in the equity of her fading home. Each creak echoed the haunting lament of struggles past, but it was a familiar tune until the problems multiplied. Her long shifts at the diner faded into a nightly rhythm, but as the fog rolled in, everything changed. An unease hung in the corners of her mind like dust motes suspended in the pale moonlight. With 2 kids, Ethan and Mia, the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. One night, the door swung ajar as she arrived home, silver moonlight spilling half-heartedly into the darkened hallway. The doorknob felt cold, almost like a warning. Lila pushed the door open, adrenaline thrumming in her veins, sharp and sudden like ice water down her spine. Her fingers brushed the frame, too jittery to acknowledge the chill seeping into her bones. Ignoring the small unease brewing, she called out for her children, their whispers reverberating back at her from the depths of the house. But it was the giggly echo that sent shivers dancing across her skin, a laugh that didn't belong to either of them. "Mommy, we're playing with Charlie." Their voices chimed. The name struck her deep, a spectral poker right in her chest. Charlie? Who the hell was Charlie? Lila remembered the stories, whispered warnings from neighbors about a friendly boy who lived in the walls, the kind of stories that keep parents up at night. The next day, Lila sifted through the yellowed local history books. As she flipped through page after page, her heart raced with each line about missing people. A shiver clawed at her throat as tales of a malevolent spirit unfolded, an insatiable creature that played with children, leading them astray. She read about a supposedly benevolent leader whose charm masked horrors long buried. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Later that night, echoes from the basement prompted a primal instinct from deep within Lila. She approached the trapdoor, breathing shallow and rapid. Heart pounding, the quiet creak swallowed her fears whole, taste of dread heavy in the air. A flickering against the wall drew her gaze, a shadow, curling into a twisted smile. The children's laughter floated up from the gloom, a haunting chorale. "Charlie wants to play forever, Mommy!" they cried. Pain shot through Lila. Her chest felt tight, like iron shackles constricting her breath. As darkness swirled, she felt the floor buckle beneath her, a riptide pulling her into an abyss of terror. She knew she had to choose. She had to confront the friend in the shadows or risk losing everything to the night. What awaited her in those inky depths? She gripped a wall, gasping against the rush of dread, teetering on the brink of her worst nightmare. Would she step forward or let Charlie claim her little ones forever? Lila hesitated, sweat running down her back as each pulse of her heart echoed in her ears. The laughter was growing louder, stretching, twisting into a malicious symphony that beckoned from the black maw of the basement. Shadows flickered in the dim light, the outlines of her children blurred and shaky at the edges. "Mommy, come play," the voices sang, a siren's call woven with innocence yet steeped in an otherworldly chill. "Charlie," she whispered, biting back rising panic. Who was he? Too many stories filled her mind, conflicting tales of a mischievous spirit or something far darker. The smell of damp earth wafted up from the opening, a sickening perfume of decay mixing with the weight of dread. A voice echoed in her mind, the warning of an older neighbor: he lures them in, he tricks them. Gripping the stair railing, Lila peered into the abyss. What were Ethan and Mia really doing down there? Could she risk going down? She couldn't abandon her children, but stepping into that darkness felt like volunteering for her own doom. "Mommy, we need you." Mia's voice shattered her resolve. Lila's breath hitched. The children were so close. Her heart ached, urging her to take that plunge into the shadows, but each step felt like a betrayal of the instinct telling her to turn back. A flicker of movement caught her eye in the corner shadows. It was a boy, a small figure with tousled hair, just barely visible, standing there with a grin stretched unnaturally wide. "Come on, Lila." Charlie is so much fun. Her instincts screamed, every muscle in her body tensed. No! She gasped, forcing herself to call out. Ethan! Mia! Come here! Charlie's waiting. They chimed, a cacophony of giggles intermingled with something deeper, something that burrowed into her soul. Panic surged through Lila like wildfire. Footsteps rushed toward the basement, ascending from below as if the darkness itself was alive. Ethan! Mia! She screamed, but her voice seemed small as it disappeared into the shadows. Suddenly, the ground shuddered beneath her, a sharp crack tearing through her heart. The floorboards throbbed and twisted, almost alive, warning her to remain still. Mommy, mommy! Echoed against the wooden frame, but this time the laughter turned sinister. 1,000 children's voices fused into a single chant, rage and fear intertwined, forcing Lila forward. She couldn't let this gameplay take her kids. Gritting her teeth, she lunged for the trapdoor, wrenching it open, ready to dive into the pitch blackness below. A surge of cold air burst forth like the breath of a phantom, wrapping around her legs as she peered into the depths. The otherworldly laughter swallowed her whole, echoing off the walls like a dark omen. Charlie wants to play, it whispered, enticing and terrifying at once. With a final glance at the children's faces, her heart clanged like a bell of doom. I'm coming! She cried, taking a breath of courage and plunging into the depths. Blackness enveloped her, stinging her eyes as ghostly fingers seemed to clutch at her throat, wrapping her in spectral chains. Panic spiraled as she descended, her heart pounding out a desperate rhythm. Ethan! Mia! But the only answer was an insistent giggle, echoing back from the void. What awaited her in this nightmare? What did Charlie truly desire? And as the darkness closed in, did she still have time to save her children? Just then, a soft whisper tickled her ear, a hint of a forgotten truth. You have a choice, will you play? A shiver of realization gripped her. She wasn't just a mother now, she was a pawn in a game far older and much more sinister than she ever imagined. What was Charlie hiding beneath the surface of his innocent facade? Whatever it was, she would have to face it, before it was too late. The air grew heavier as Lila plunged deeper, the darkness consuming her like a thick fog. Each heartbeat resonated like a drum, drowning in a chorus of distorted laughter. The whispers swirled around her, feelers of something ancient, slippery, and profoundly wrong. She couldn't breathe, trapped in a void that felt alive. Mommy, the cry was a distant echo, barely sweeping past her. But mixed with it was another sound, a giggle, light and eerie, like the chime of broken glass. Instinctively, Lila reached out her hands, clawing at the nothingness, desperate for solidity. Ethan! Mia! She screamed, voice cracking under the pressure of sheer terror. The laughter seemed to surge, growing louder, mocking her desperation. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flickered ahead, drawing her forward. It pulsed like a heartbeat. She stumbled toward it, each step heavy with dread, feeling the tug of something unspeakable threatening to drag her back. As she neared the faint glow, Lila's heart sank. It revealed a small, dimly lit room, walls adorned with crude drawings of children, their faces twisted in ecstasy, prancing around a familiar figure, Charlie. His smirk sent a jolt through her, twisting her stomach into knots. Welcome! His voice slithered through the air, smooth as silk but laced with malice. You found your way. Lila's pulse quickened. She stepped back instinctively, scanning the room for Ethan and Mia. But they weren't there. A haze of panic twisted around her, and the vibrant light from the crude drawings pulsed in rhythm with her racing heart. Charlie, she said, voice trembling. Where are my kids? He giggled, taunting, having fun. But there is something you must do first. He stepped closer, shadows melding with him, warping his form. His eyes glinted like shards of glass. You want to play? What do you want from me? Lila shouted, indignation rising amidst her fear. Only a little game, he cooed, tilting his head like a curious cat. If you win, I'll let you take them back. If you lose, his voice trailed off, punctuated by an expectant hush that wrapped around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. What's the game? Lila's voice wavered but held a thread of defiance. She couldn't back down now. Simple. Charlie leaned in, his grin betraying an urgency, a hunger for mischief. You have to find each of the hidden truths about the darkness that lingers here, and unravel them before the clock runs out. With a swipe, he produced a shimmering hourglass, the grains of sand glistening like broken stars. You see? He laughed, the sound piercing through Lila's resolve. Time is already slipping away. A chill rolled down her spine. Vision blurring, potential horrors raced through her mind, fears clawing at the edges of her sanity. Each hidden truth felt like daggers in the dark, the shadows watching her every move. In her gut, she knew this would demand more than strength. There were choices lurking in the corners, anything but simple. Let them go, she demanded, fingers twitching to snatch the hourglass from his grip. Only if you play. His words echoed in the confines of the small room, lingering like a fog that refused to dissipate. What will you wager? The walls seemed to close in, suffocating her. Lila swallowed hard, her pulse in her throat. She thought of Ethan and Mia. Did she have the strength to face whatever horrors lay ahead? Did she really want to play? Your soul, Charlie whispered, his eyes glimmering with dark delight. Lila's heart dropped. Would she give it all for her children? She could feel the clock ticking, grains slipping one by one. But she was trapped in a sinister game, and she didn't even know the rules. As the laughter crescendoed and the shadows danced around her, she felt the weight of her decision pressing down. Would she step deeper into this darkness? Or would she find a way to fight it? And just as her resolve tightened, a flicker of movement danced at the edge of her vision. Mommy! Help us! Panic clawed at her as she realized she wasn't the only one caught in Charlie's web. What other secrets awaited her? Had she unleashed a nightmare, or could she disrupt the game before it consumed everything? Time slipped away, a measure of speed against her growing dread. She needed answers, and fast. The clock was running out. Lila's breath quickened as shadows flickered around her, the walls breathing like a living entity. Charlie's laughter turned into a low rumble, echoing through the chamber, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace. The hourglass in his hand shimmered ominously, the sand slipping away with a soft, mocking hiss. Choose wisely, he hissed, his voice intertwining with the howl of unseen winds. The truths are hidden, but only one will set them free. The walls twisted under her gaze, the drawings morphing into grotesque scenes of children dancing joyously, yet their eyes bore a hollowness that chilled Lila's bones. Each child in the drawing seemed to reach towards her, pulling at her heart, pleading without words. Truths? She echoed, more to herself than to Charlie. What truths? 3 truths await discovery. He sang, his voice cartwheeling with glee. But beware, for each holds a piece of darkness and a piece of light. Only with each choice will the next emerge. A gust of wind swept through the room, sending Lila stumbling back. She steadied herself against a wall, feeling the rough texture, claws of cold ink tracing up her fingertips. She couldn't let the terror overwhelm her. Ethan and Mia's faces, so innocently smiling in her mind, pushed her onward. What's the first one? She demanded, her voice stronger, edged with desperation. Charlie's grin widened, stretching to unnatural lengths. First truth, chosen by you. Can you bear the burden? He gestured, and from the shadows, a flicker of light appeared, illuminating a doorway hidden in gloom. With a deep swallow, Lila moved toward it, the pulsating glow beckoning her. The whispers escalated, swirling faster, echoing her fears and insecurities, filling the space with a cacophony of dread. Peering through the opening revealed a small, decrepit room. Faded photographs in cracked frames lined the walls, images of lost children twisted in playful poses, many of whom bore striking resemblances to Ethan and Mia. Memories clawed at her, murky and vile, a stench of decay that seeped into her mind. In the center stood a cracked mirror, dark and distorted. It seemed to hum, beckoning to her as she hesitated at its edge. What do I do? She breathed, feeling an unwanted compulsion to step closer. Look upon yourself, Charlie whispered, his laughter turning sinister. The first truth lies in your reflection. Gulping, Lila stepped closer, her reflection fractured and grotesque. It wasn't her face staring back, no, it was one of those children, eyes wide with terror. The anguish was palpable, she could feel it clawing at her heart, threatening to consume her. Is this what Charlie wants me to see? She whispered, horrified. The child seemed to scream silently, pleading for help from somewhere far beyond. Suddenly, shadows crawled from the corners, slithering closer, threatening to envelop her. Lila's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Was this the truth she needed, or merely another trap? Time is slipping. Charlie's voice rang with frantic energy, the grains of sand pouring faster. What will you choose? Lila could feel the pulse of desperation. She had to break free. This wasn't just about herself. It was about saving her children, unraveling the twisted secrets of this darkness. Light, darkness, what does it truly mean? She whispered to herself, trembling with indecision. Choosing meant she would have to confront more than she ever imagined. The laughter, the distorted figures, and the horrors that lurked behind the truth weighed on her, sending icy tendrils down her spine. Just then, the mirage flickered, and she glimpsed another child, this time, with familiar dark hair and bright eyes that shining with hope. It was Mia. Mommy! Help! The voice echoed out, sharper this time, slicing through the clamor. Lila's heart fractured. Would she become ensnared by the darkness to save her? Time is running. Will you gamble it all? Charlie taunted, her breath quickened, eyes racing between the mirror and the hourglass swinging almost tauntingly in Charlie's hand. Ethan's laughter mingled with her daughter's panic, a vivid portrait of all she had to lose. One choice. One truth. But what if she found the very thing that led to their ruin? And just as panic seeped into every pore, Lila tightened her grip, heart slamming against her chest. Would she dive into the truth, risk everything, or plunge back into the shadows? The hourglass tipped, sand cascading like her fleeting hope. She had mere moments left. What kind of truth awaited her in the reflection? Choose, Lila, the shadows whispered. Or lose them forever. With a desperate breath, Lila leaned closer to the mirror, the child's face morphing into her son's. Ethan, she gasped, almost stepping through the glass, but the surface rippled like a pond disturbed by a stone. Panic surged as the child's features split between Ethan's innocent smile and Mia's haunting plea. Choose quickly. Charlie urged again, his eyes glittering with mischief. The shadows twisted, turning the faded room darker, more claustrophobic, as every heartbeat echoed like thunder. The whispering grew louder, drowning her thoughts with warnings and threats, tears stinging her eyes. If you don't choose, they yell, I'll stay trapped just like the others. Lila felt the weight of every stare in the room. The hollow eyes of the hidden children bore down on her. Time. Her thoughts spiraled, mingling fear with sorrow. She couldn't let them suffer. Would this truth hold the promise of freedom or only pull her further into despair? Look, Lila. Charlie's voice twisted. Another choice unveils your fate. In a moment of frantic clarity, she commanded her trembling legs to move towards the mirror. I choose. I'll see the truth. The words felt both powerful and foolish, a gamble with unknown stakes. The surface shimmered, then shattered like glass, scattering shards across the room. As they fell, a blinding light erupted from the depths of the mirror. Lila shielded her eyes, but the pull was irresistible. The fragments caught the glow, and with each piece, another truth whispered to her. The first shard floated before her, sharp and heavy. Inside, she saw Mia, alone in a darkened room, her small figure curled in despair. Mommy! She cried out again, voice quaking. Please! Grief clotted Lila as the scene shifted. She flipped through shards of memories. Laughing children turned to hollow faces, their joy replaced by screams in her mind. Would she have to confront this? Was each shard a piece of their pain, waiting for her to witness? Feel it, Lila. Take the weight of their truth, Charlie's voice echoed, a seductive lullaby laced with malice. The hourglass tipped again, beads of sand blurring into a storm. Threads of darkness lurked in the corners, yearning to ensnare her when she faltered. Mommy! I swear I'm okay. Mia's voice interrupted. Lila struggled to breathe. The twisted images danced in front of her, memories colliding as laughter rang false. Could she rewrite their stories from this truth? Could she save them and banish the shadows haunting their lives? Suddenly, a wicked laugh erupted from Charlie. You think you have control? How naive. The shards began to slice through the air, swirling around her like a tempest. She staggered back, clutching her head. Vivid images flashed: a bloody playground, children's shoes abandoned, laughter fading into silence. Each moment painted tormented visions of loss and regret, pressing upon her chest until she could barely breathe. Choose the next truth, or they remain lost. Charlie taunted, eyes glinting dangerously. No! Lila screamed, pushing against the chaos. I'll find them. I'll bring them back. But as she gathered herself to approach the shards again, the mirror crackled, and an icy terror rippled through the room. A dark silhouette emerged from the shadows, fingers elongated, face twisted. Lila, it hissed, voice echoing like distant thunder. You can't hide from what you've created. Her resolve wavered, and fear crept back in. Was the darkness now shifting to consume her? Charlie cackled, reveling in her broken facade. One more truth, Lila. Before it's too late. The hourglass spun wildly now, grains slipping through the air, almost as if mocking her rush against time. Would she dare to face another? Would the truth redeem or destroy? Lila's heart thudded like a war drum in her ears, demanding action. Mommy! Please! Mia's voice rang clearer now, cutting through the chaos with heartbreaking urgency. Lila hesitated, caught between choices looming like dark platforms over an endless abyss. Something in her gut shifted, telling her the darkness was waiting to consume her. But what awaited her behind? The next choice, would she have the strength to face it? Only the choice of the second truth could reveal the depth of the shadows lingering in her heart. Choose. The darkness whispered, 1,000 voices echoing in unison. Or be lost forever. The air thickened, stifling Lila's breaths. Each heartbeat echoed like a drumline punctuating her impending dread. The shard glimmered in front of her, radiant yet foreboding. Lila realized she had to make a choice, but her mind raced, grappling with what the next truth might unveil. What's behind that shard? She murmured, feigning bravery. Ah, Lila, Charlie said, sliding through the shadows with a lopsided grin. Truth rarely wears a friendly face. Are you ready for a peek? The dark silhouette loomed larger, creeping closer, fingers stretching toward her like grasping tendrils. Don't listen to him. A voice cried out, a whisper woven from the echoes of despair. The children trapped in the corners retreated, yet their pleading eyes remained fixed on her. We don't want you to take another step. Lila's heart raced. What were they warning her about? Were they shielding her from pain or nudging her toward it? She shook off the doubt, wiping the sweat from her brow. Show me! She shouted to Charlie, as if willing her voice to bolster her determination. The remaining shards hovered, an ethereal dance barely connecting with the ground. Each shimmer threatened to reveal fragmented nightmares. Begin, Charlie urged, the glimmer in his eyes gleaming with malice. Taking a step forward, Lila reached for the nearest shard. As she pressed her fingers against its surface, a chilling cold seeped into her skin, prickling every nerve ending. In a whirl of light and darkness, the scene unveiled itself before her. A child's laughter echoed, innocent yet laced with a darkness Lila couldn't explain. It morphed into chaos, a flash of classrooms drenched in shadow and whispers that dripped like poison in her ears. Among the clamor, a name cut through, Ethan. No! Not my son! Lila screamed as the laughter spiraled into something far more sinister. The classroom dissolved into a disorienting tornado of faces. Children surrounded her, their eyes wide and cold, a sea of lost souls echoing Mia's pleas. No, Lila whispered, attempting to step back from the scene, but the shard held her captive. You see? Charlie's laughter echoed, a sinister melody woven into the cries of the trapped. You cannot escape the heart of what you've wrought. They are chained by your truths, Lila. Desperation clawed at her throat. What do I do? She gasped, eyes darting among the shards. Did she really have control, or was Charlie weaving his wicked design around her? Make your choice. The shadow loomed closer, an overwhelming darkness that made breathing difficult. A part of her wanted to flee, to ignore the terror consuming her. Yet she knew there was no escaping the truth. No! I choose! Lila shouted defiantly, but as she looked at the shards, which truth should she delve into next? Charlie grinned wider, teeth white against the darkness. Choose wisely. Fear is an unrelenting guide. As her gaze shifted to a smaller shard that pulsed in an ethereal light, she felt a sudden warmth, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. She extended her hand once more, but just before contact, the temperature dropped, frost creeping through the air, and a piercing scream erupted from the depths of the shard, echoing Mia's earlier cries. Lila's heart dropped. The pained wails poured from the small shard, twisting her gut. No more. I can't. Too late, Charlie hissed, his voice a serpent's trail. Ready or not, the truth will consume you. Was this truth meant to save her or pull her further down into an abyss? Lila's grip faltered as she freed her hand away. A moment of clarity broke through the impending chaos, and she knew she had to face it, but at what cost? Which child would she sacrifice for the sake of another lost truth? Choose. A chorus echoed, merging into a terrifying chant. Face your fear, or let them slip away. The shadows closed in around her, more tangible than ever before. The stillness felt ominous, like a predator ready to pounce. Would she break down and let the darkness take her? Or would she stand firm in the face of the next truth? The weight of the decision pressed heavily on her, a countdown racing toward finality. In that moment of anticipation, Lila could feel the very fibers of her being unraveling. And she braced for what might unfold next. The frost hung heavy in the air, wrapping around Lila's skin like a suffocating shroud. Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts as she fought against the urge to retreat into the dark safety of the shadows. Those eyes, the children's eyes, bearing recognition, hunted her from the corners of her mind. Each face twisted in pleading, intertwining with her own memories, threatening to unravel her grasp on reality. The shards flickered, selecting their next victim with agonizing deliberation. Lila felt an insatiable compulsion to understand, to see beyond the veil of deceit that Charlie had woven. The voices urged her to act, a cacophony of desperation and dread that pulled at her very soul. Reveal it, they cried, melding into a haunting plea. Don't let us vanish enough. She screamed into the suffocating silence. No response, only the oppressive weight of the dark, waiting, watching. Charlie's laughter slithered through the pervasive fog, a mockery of her fear. You've raised your hand to the abyss, Lila. Now let it uncover the truth. His figure shifted, morphing with the shadows, a tall silhouette framed against flickering lights that shadowed the shards. With trembling fingers, Lila steadied her breath. So many lives were at stake. Even her hesitation felt like betrayal. What truth could she gather to set them free? She turned to the nearest shard. This time, the dark surface glimmered with a soft, inviting glow, promising an answer, perhaps even a sliver of redemption. But as her fingertips brushed the cool edge, she was instantly flooded with a vision that twisted her gut. Blood rivulets of crimson snaking through hallways, screams on the air, echoing off walls that pulsated with despair. The faces of children appeared again, but now twisted in terror, engulfed in flames of destruction. Not again. Lila staggered, heart racing wildly, as shadows danced closer. They reached for her, clawing through the darkness, hungry for her fear. You have to choose, Lila. A voice echoed, a chilling duplicate of her own. Do you want the truth? Or are you too afraid to confront it? Fear gripped her throat as memories of Ethan flooded her mind. She saw him laughing, joy transforming into horror. It felt so real, as if he were standing beside her, trapped in this nightmare with her, waiting for salvation. Would she be able to handle what she might uncover? The shards glinted with potential answers, but Lila knew that truth often demanded a painful sacrifice. Let me see it! She shouted, forcing herself to ignore the reservations gnawing at her sanity. She reached towards the last shard, an unusually deep shade of blue that shimmered like twilight. Show me! The world erupted in a rush of vivid chaos. The shard erupted in blinding light, and before Lila's eyes, her surroundings shifted. A hushed classroom descended into tumult. At the center was Mia, trapped in an invisible cage of shadows, crying out for help. Lila! Help me! Help us! The weight of despair crashed over her. It felt like drowning. The shards pulled memories from her. She could feel the warmth of hope clawing at their depths, yet it was obscured by the chill of dread.
What if this truth was darker than any before? Time is ticking.
Charlie's rasp felt like a rush of breath against her ear, cutting through the vision.
Which one will it be?
Sweat trickled down her spine, pooling at the base of her neck. Lila could feel eyes on her, tens of eyes, all watching, waiting.
They're depending on you, Lila.
The voices rose, a tempest of sorrow that threatened to tear her apart. As everything spun around her, she realized the choice wasn't just about saving herself or the lost children, it meant facing the ghosts of her own making. And then she heard it, a whisper that slithered inside her mind.
How much are you willing to sacrifice?
Before she could reply, darkness surged, crashing like waves around her.
Lila braced herself, knowing the Shard's secrets had yet to fully manifest.
As the corners of her reality splintered, one thought pierced through the thunderous drumbeats of her heart: she was about to
unveil something that could either liberate them all, or condemn them forever. Would she be able to withstand the retribution of her choices?
As shadows crept ever closer, a new echo emerged, a chilling promise.
The truth lies beyond, but can you face your demons?
Misty tendrils of bloom curled around Lila, ensnaring her senses as she felt reality thin and fracture. The darkness was alive, writhing, scratching at her skin with icy fingers. That rush of chaotic visions had shattered her perception of safety, leaving her vulnerable and exposed in the thick of eternal whispers. Each rasp seemed to beckon her deeper into despair, coaxing her into the moaning void that loomed just out of sight.
"What's happening?"
she gasped, her voice barely cutting through the suffocating silence. The weight of countless stares pressed down upon her like lead, the warmth of life replaced by an all-consuming chill. It didn't feel like an illusion. This dread was as palpable as the bitter frost in the air. More choices, more sacrifices, Charlie's voice crooned, reverberating around her, wrapping the atmosphere in a sinister embrace.
"You've already seen the price. Will you pay it?"
The shadows surged, thickening until they became solid. Lila found herself encircled, a spectral ring that pulsed with a hideous rhythm. She tried to step back, but her feet felt glued to the ground. In horror, she realized the inky arms weren't just an external threat, they reflected her own darkness, her own failures. Each face in the approaching darkness bore a resemblance to the children she'd failed: Ethan, Mia, faces she couldn't bear to remember fully.
"No!"
Her voice broke as fragments of guilt burned through her chest, igniting something deep within. With fury and despair bubbling in her throat, she fought against the icy grip of the shadows.
"Let me see everything!"
she shouted, her heart slamming against her ribs. At her command, the shards surged with blinding light that illuminated the obscured corners of her soul: moments of laughter chilled by fear, dreams ripped apart by regret. Faces twisted in grief stabbed at her like knives. "You could have saved us," they whispered, their voices overlapping as she felt their pain cut deep. Tremors traveled through her limbs, but she refused to yield.
This had to end. She had to understand.
"You can't find peace until you face the truth," the voices murmured again, their tempo shifting into a haunting melody that was both beautiful and terrifying.
"Will you choose redemption, Lila?"
From the crushing darkness emerged a flickering silhouette. Mia moved toward her, entangled in shadow, each step resonating like thunder.
"Help me, please. Help us all."
Despair twisted in Lila's gut.
"No more hesitation. No more fear. I want to help."
Her voice rang out, stronger this time, echoing against the vacuum of despair.
"Then face the heart of it,"
boomed an incorporeal laughter that sent chills racing down her spine. Lila leapt forward, the Shard's blinding light guiding her as she flung herself into the web of frigid shadows. The sensation was electrifying yet horrifying, pulling her down, deeper into the chaos where past and present collided. A cacophony erupted, swirling memories assaulting her at once: a burst of laughter, a scream, a distant cry for help, the crackling of flames. She saw Ethan, then Mia, their terrified faces blending as the darkness closed around her, threatening to swallow her whole.
"You have to make it stop."
Lila screamed into the tempest, the pressure building to an unbearable crescendo. Suddenly, everything shattered into dazzling shards, throwing her consciousness into a kaleidoscope of anguish and clarity. The biting frost transformed into a scorching heat that enveloped her bare skin. Confusion reigned, as all she had known unraveled, piece by agonizing piece, and then, there was silence. An unnatural stillness enveloped her senses, the shadows hovering, still and expectant.
Lila's heart thudded, each pulse echoing in her ears. What lay before her?
What had she unleashed? The last shard radiated warmth, one last choice, pulsing in anticipation. As she reached for it, a figure slipped out of the shadows. A familiar face wrapped in whispers, her own twisted reflection staring back.
This is where it all begins. Are you ready to sever the bond? With every ounce of strength and a final gasp for breath, she whispered, yes. What awaited Lila as she crossed that threshold, into the heart of her torment?
The air crackled with foreboding. One truth remained unspoken, lingering in the air like a festering wound.
Could she truly withstand the awakening of her darkest fears?
The warmth enveloped Lila, but it didn't ease the pit of dread in her stomach. Instead, it thrummed like a frightened bird, reverberating in her chest as she confronted her reflection, an echo of herself twisted by shadows. Panic surged through her like an electric shock. She was staring into a darkened mirror, a version of herself steeped in anguish. Sever the bond, she whispered, her breath shallow. The figure grinned, a malevolent twist of familiarity that made her skin crawl.
Do you know what that means, Lila?
It spoke her name like a curse.
Are you ready to lose everything?
Images swirled behind her eyes. Moments of joy decayed into visceral reminders of pain. No, not just reminders, fiery brandings of loss.
Mia's laughter, Ethan's smile, rendered into echoes, faded to haunt her forever.
I have to try, she gasped, stepping forward. The warmth of the shard pulsed in her hand, a lifeline reached through the darkness.
No turning back, the reflection warned. With a deep breath, Lila plunged her hand into the shining light.
The heat engulfed her whole, a shockwave tinged with both bliss and agony. A rush of visions struck her like a battering ram. Lila was taken back to the night of the fire, the chaos, the screams, the thick smoke choked her throat. She felt the heat claw at her skin as she waded through desperate families, faces of panic and woe. Ethereal hands grabbing, pulling at her, demanding she act, saving them, but she couldn't. She was paralyzed, a spectator bound by the weight of inert failure. Then, the scene shifted abruptly. She found herself in an endless field, the grass brushed with moonlight. Shadows flickered at the edges, and in the distance, she saw the outlines of the children from her past. They called out, their voices a haunting symphony of yearning, desperation threading through her heart. We need help. They cried, their childish faces twisted in anguish. Her gut twisted, and desolation rippled through her like an incoming tide. Help! I'm sorry. Lila screamed, but the words felt hollow, devoured by the vastness of the land. The shadows closed in, pulling her deeper into a mire of despair. Darkness beckoned like a twisted lover, whispering promises of refuge. No! She shouted, summoning the strength to resist. The memories enveloped her, pressing harder and harder until she gasped for air. Scorched, grasping hands pulled at her from the past, threatening to drag her down into oblivion. But then, something shifted. She felt a flicker inside, a whisper of courage igniting in the pit of her soul. I refuse. She shouted, planting her feet firm. You don't own me. I won't be your vessel anymore. In that instant, light erupted around her, piercing through the suffocating darkness. It overwhelmed her senses, a wall of brilliance that seared her eyes.
The reflective figure howled, the shadows recoiling. No! You are mine!
It shrieked, but Lila pushed against the tide, forcing herself forward, her will igniting like flame against the night. As the light swirled and flexed, Lila was thrust again into a new scene, this time, a sterile hospital room.
She blinked in disbelief. Rushed whispers of doctors filled her ears, urgency wiretapping the atmosphere. A heart monitor flickered with desperation, beeping steadily as sterile equipment surrounded her, and there, on the cot, lay Ethan. Pale and frail, but alive. Relief washed over her, mingling with guilt as a shadow flickered at the edge of her vision. Not just a shadow, but a figure mounting a listless approach. Lila's heart raced, dread flooding back. No, no! She gasped, recognizing the sinister strides. A deep-seated fear unraveled from her gut, swallowing tentative hope whole. The figure grinned wider, reveling in her despair.
darkness leaking through its silhouette like smoke.
You think you can end this? It laughed. This is just the beginning.
Terror gripped her as realization struck.
Running wouldn't suffice. Confronting that figure was her only path, but was she ready to face what she had unleashed? We'll see what you're made of soon enough, Lila. The laughter echoed, a haunting reminder that the darkness always circles back. What would she find when the shadows close in again? The battle had just begun.
Lila blinked into the brilliance, the world around her slowly clarifying. Threads of light wove through the darkness, pulling her toward a vast, unfamiliar landscape. The echo of Charlie's taunting laughter now faded into whispers, his shadow lost among the whirling light particles that shimmered around her.
Ethan? Mia?
She called, her voice trembling yet firm. The air felt charged with urgency, every breath a reminder that time was slipping away. She could feel the weight of every decision pressing against her chest, a tidal wave ready to crash. And then, she saw them, her children. They stood just beyond a shimmering veil, their faces pale but hope flickering in their wide eyes.
Mommy!
Help! They pleaded, voices overlapping with both eagerness and fear.
Hold on. I'm coming.
Lila rushed toward them, but just as she reached the edge of the light, it flickered, casting long shadows that stretched toward her like grasping fingers.
In that moment, Charlie's face materialized an amalgamation of every dark fantasy, a demon wearing the mask of a child. Did you really think you could just waltz in and take them back?
His voice dripped with malice, every word a reminder of the stakes.
I will do whatever it takes. Lila shouted, her fear blossoming into determination. You can't keep them.
I will break this curse. Each word unraveled her past, revealing the tangled fibers of her regrets, her failures as a mother, her pain. Memories of laughter turned to screams, laughter that echoed in hollows of fear, all swelling to prepare her for what lay ahead. A sliver of light shot from the hourglass, a frantic warning that time was unfurling swiftly. Charlie's gleeful expression faltered slightly, revealing that he still felt that uncertainty threading the atmosphere. Only one last game, Lila. Pick wisely, choose the path to freedom or the chains of despair. Lila steadied her breath, though her heart raced like thunder.
What will it be?
She said, forcing steel into her voice.
Truth or consequence?
He crooned, eyes glinting devilishly.
The hourglass flipped again, grains of sand spiraling down like lost hopes.
Choose how this plays out.
A deep-rooted instinct flared in Lila's gut.
Then I choose to shed the lies that shackle us. With a scream fueled by desperation, she lunged. The visions and the shards exploded around her memories, once lost, now a part of her, all flooding back like a dam breaking. Every joyous moment illuminated her path, tangible, vibrant, filled with the laughter and love that had once been. She saw her and her children, playing in the sunshine, their smiles, the warmth of her home before shadows invaded it.
Remember us. Mia's voice rang clear, pulling her back into focus. I do. Lila cried out again, resolve anchoring her feet. I will fight.
Charlie's laughter echoed threateningly, but Lila's heart surged, filled with the raw energy of motherhood. She pressed onward, breaking through the veil of shadows with the light of remembrance as fuel. Lila wove through fear and darkness, unearthing the memories that built them, wrapping them around her like armor. The brightness enveloped her, illuminating the thread connecting her to Ethan and Mia. Your past won't define you unless you let it. Lila shouted into the darkness, her voice becoming a melody of strength. Suddenly, the darkness began to fragment, shadows flecking away as tears of joy clouded their faces.
You're breaking, Mommy. Just a bit more. The kids shouted, their eyes shining with belief. Stay with me. Together.
Lila's cries broke through the tumult, merging with their joyous laughter, resonating louder than Charlie's taunts. With a deafening crash, the final barrier shattered. The light erupted, banishing the shadows. Lila felt the chains that bound her loosening, slowly lifting the heaviness from her heart. As she reached out, Ethan and Mia surged into her arms, the warmth of their presence igniting her soul.
We're free! They cheered, elation swelling between them.
Mommy is not letting go again, Lila promised, tears streaming down her cheeks. Charlie's presence swirled. In frustration, blurring with the remnants of shadow until he dissolved into darkness, escaping into the folds of forgotten nightmares.
This isn't the end.
He screamed, but the words faded like mist in warm sunlight. As the children clung tightly to her, the dark remnants of Willow Creek unwound, leaving behind only the traces of what had been an echo, reminding her of loss but also of resilience. "Let us go home," Lila whispered, holding onto the warmth of her children like a lifeline. Hand in hand, they stepped forward. The boundaries between light and dark faded, revealing the sun-drenched street where laughter once thrived.
With the weight of the past subsided, Lila realized each moment would always be a choice, a legacy of hope and healing.
They could face whatever lay ahead together. This was finally their beginning. If you've loved this story, you need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss more thrilling adventures.
Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this channel alive. Don't wait even one more second. Flood the comments with your thoughts on the ending and any theories you might have.
And make sure to instantly share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.
Your support keeps us going.